Live?
Butter.
Night Watchman. Hold on. Live?
Butter.
And we are live. Yay! Night Watchman.
You can call me Sat, or you could just, pronounce my name incorrectly like many people do.
Live? I heard that you're called the Korean nationalist, or...
Yes.
Or, yay!
That is
Really?
correct.
Interesting. How so?
Well, I am a nationalist, and I'm also Korean.
Okay. Alright. So, my dear bird slut, even though I hate using that, but I'm going to say it anyways as a means of try not being too offensive. Well, you know what? Never mind. Yeah, I know, but hey, it's always needed, especially for me. Mental strength is the very basics of what I need in my life, along with everything else. But anyways, bird slut, what's the topic? A free stateless society.
Stateless? As in no state?
Yes. Or at least, or any institution.
Well, I mean, marriage is marriage is allowed by the state, but yeah, you're right. It doesn't exactly need one. Marriage is not, popular because once you get married, you have to sign half of your shit to someone else, and then once you divorce.
I mean, why does okay?
Well, now it's replaced by non-marriage. Oh,
Yeah, don't even remind me.
you know what I don't count as marriage? Polyamorous relationships. Isn't that what it's called? Like where you marry multiple people? It's like, excuse me?
Yeah, I'm not a fan of that.
Yeah, it's
I really
creepy.
want to stay with one person. One person. Plus,
It's
it's
like,
not
but why
healthy
stay
either.
with one person when you could stay with like, I don't know, 5 people? It's like, okay, well then you're not marrying anybody. It's just you're just binding yourself to 5 people, like a Horcrux. Yeah, imagine that's how it works. Like marriage is like casting, or creating Horcruxes in Harry Potter. Where if you don't know what that is, it's just like where you split your soul into multiple pieces and then you just give it to people or objects. Which I mean, if you're marrying like 5 people, then I'm like assuming that you see 5 people as just objects.
How does it work?
Bruh. Oh man. Hey, you could almost say that it's kind of like Discord, not the app. You know, because like the opposite of harmony is kind of like, yes, Discord. Use the right word, man. Also, not to be confused with the application slash website. Oh my! Why did you have to mention that? No. Show. That
What show is
show
that
is
exactly?
Ring. My Little Pony. There's like a character on there named Discord, and it's supposed
Oh, that
you don't need to
one.
know about it.
I heard that was the freaking craze, like during I
The
don't know,
only
like
reason I know about that is because some very mean person linked me a Tumblr article or a Tumblr link, and I didn't see very fun things. But one of the
oh,
characters that was involved
Tumblr.
was one
I
of the things
remember.
one of the characters
Hold
that was
on.
involved was the character named Discord, and I was like, why does he have different wings? Why? Why is half of his body different from the other? And it's like, yeah, because Discord.
Yeah, I miss the days when Tumblr, when it was just a vlog post, along with many other the good stuff, whether it be fan fiction writing and non-safe for work content being placed there rather than the cesspool of SJW nonsensical to the point where, uh, you know, when the bot apparently removes, I don't know why, because the whole controversy of soliciting child porn was being placed on the site. Before you know it, they basically
Oh,
created porn bots at the very time to the point where all basically illicit, explicit content was being taken down. That's basically was the death of Tumblr to the point they have no choice but to migrate over to Twitter.
Twitter is like Twitter's like a polyamorous relationship. You got a lot of loyalty towards one person, but it's from like 1,000 people. Like it's from thousands of different people. Like I'm sure there are a lot of fans on Twitter that Dream. The Minecrafter Dream. Yeah, he's been under a lot of controversy, but I'm sure there's like diehard Dream fans that think that they're actually like in a relationship with Dream or something.
Ugh.
Yeah, I guess that's the closest thing to where I can describe a polyamorous relationship. Being the male in a polyamorous relationship is like being Dream, the Minecrafter.
I will also.
Mm-hmm. Read out the source first. You got to give the source. Yes. No, you got to read it to the stream. You got to say like what it is or what publication it's from. All right. Mm-hmm. Wait a second.
70s.
You're Is there any is the audio off or something? I can't hear I can't hear the audio in the stream. I'm watching the I'm watching the playback, and I think hold on a second. It might just be me. Yes, I do have the volume on. I have No, wait. Okay, so my audio and Grambo's audio seems to be working. Your audio doesn't seem to be coming through. Hold on a sec. Chat, please help us. Cause yeah, no, it's not working in the stream. I don't hear you. Yeah, you gotta your mic is not cooperating. Oh man, does that mean we started the intro without you? Oh man. People must be so confused. We're having some technical difficulties. The night watchman's microphone has been seized by the state and is not working.
More like captured or kidnapped.
Yeah, the microphone, the means of production for the radio waves in the microphone has been seized by the state.
Watchman,
There we go.
can I hear you?
Microphone.
The stream is delayed, so I'll have to
All right.
wait until I can hear you.
I'm
Hold on.
sorry, my microphone was disconnected for some reason, folks. Sorry for that.
I see.
Delay. The state took my microphone. I had to get it back.
Oh yeah, you're back. Right. So yeah,
All right.
I can hear you. All right, finally we're back. Do you just want to restart the conversation about the polyamorous relationships or like the marriage stuff? Maybe start by like reading out the article we had.
Yeah, okay. I'll start by reading the article real quick. Again,
And the article is from.
and just for the people to know this article is from Yakukan blogging site. It is on the decline of marriage. This was posted on June 16th, 2017.
Old but relevant.
Marriage rates have been in decline for most of the developed countries around the world for the last 5 decades. Some graphs illustrate this trend visually. So you see, it was kind of people were like up to 90% married around mid 60s, and then right around the 70s, it really started to fall off as we started to get into the latchkey generation. And it kind of flattened a bit around the 90s, and then it just continued to decline around 2000.
Wait, how much did it decline?
Not just America, but we also have England.
How much did it decline? Like, percentage.
It's like a 50% decline.
What the hell? That is crazy.
Yeah,
50%.
what?
That's half. Half of marriage in the world is just not. It doesn't take place anymore. Holy moly! Well, I mean, I didn't know it was 50%. I was gonna say like maybe it's like 30 or something. Dang, it's 50%. Who's getting married? Are there people still marrying now?
Marriage has become a bit of a luxury nowadays.
It's like a privilege. It's not like something people do. I mean, it was always a privilege, but like now it's like not even common. Like you would think that marriage, holy matrimony between two people would just be, a rite of passage for people who want to live together. But apparently marriage is now just becoming like first people settle down, then they live, and then they get married. You're supposed to do the thing first. And some people just aren't marrying. Most people, actually. 50% has gone down. It's crazy.
I guess the main reason is that people just don't really see the reason why they should get married anymore. It's like people have just become so
cynical, man.
cynical.
Like it's like people are like, oh, why would I want to sign away, like despite like the state of marriage right now, having to like have permission from the government to do so, like even still, like the marriage, depending on like I'll just say like for America, probably, like let's go like the Christian example. You get married by the blessing of the church, and you get like who's it called?
Little certificate.
Yeah, right. And like, but like, who's the person that you're supposed to like, give you? Oh yeah, the pastor. You're supposed, you ask the pastor, and like you do all the stuff. The ceremony of marriage should still remain the same, right? Despite if it's like legally bounded or not. But like, despite all that, it just seems like not the process, more like the idea of marriage has just died out a bit. Because people are like, oh, why would I want to go through some dumb ceremony and like have this like legally binded contract and like marry? It's like, well, because it's important. Like, it's an important decision. You can't just rush into a relationship unless you're, like say you are at the stage of getting married and you just don't do it. It's like, why wouldn't you just marry? Because at that point, that more of a show of faith towards your person you're dating. I don't know.
My guess is that, or at least this is just me, but I will say this when it comes to this result. This is what happens when the state or the government intervenes into marriage, or at least the idea of marriage, and turn it into some kind of a governmental institution that most people have been told of needing codependency as a means of seeking approval of not just the relationship, but also as the greatest scam and lie as a means of taxing them on the other. And and I never understood of the whole. Now this is just me when I was still a status at the time, and I never understood. But I never understood why people are against gay marriage until basically what gay marriage is basically resulting. It's not of when I figure out what it truly means. It's this. It's not allowing gays, or at least homosexual and bisexual individuals, of wanting to have the legal right of seeking marriage within their consenting partners, of which they wish to spend the rest of their lives. The greatest honeypot trap is extending the voting and tax cattle towards these individuals as a means of increasing the overarching power. We've been told and we've been taught that we need this as a means of not only as a sense of protecting our right to be for who we are as well as ourselves, but also to make sure that we can be the happiest people and individuals that we can be, while also seeking validation and social acceptance from the rest of, I would say, of society. But that too was a lie.
The reasons that oh, go ahead.
Well, I wanted to say that was the biggest lie, is because that's how they work, is that we were told this many times, and we did not see it until now, until it was too late. We were told that we need the state as a means of validating our, not just ourselves to be for who we are, but I think I'm just repeating myself. But anyways, again, like, this was a honeypot trap laid in sight. And Thaddeus Russell, basically the author of the book, A Renegade History of the United States, mind-blowing book that I highly recommend you sat in reading. He's very much on point, especially which why people, especially for him, he's against gay marriage because it's not liberating, it's enslavement. Marriage as a government institution is an enslavement of restricting people's right not just to be happy, but as a means of stripping their own financial income of which they've earned, along with everything else.
I mean, that especially that it does especially apply to, like you say, Grambo, gay marriage, how it actually hurt the LGBT community.
No, wait, hold on a second. Let me interject. So we're talking about marriage in two different senses. We're talking like like the legal marriage contract, which is a different thing from what marriage actually is. The reason that like especially more conservative people don't see gay marriage as marriage is because not for legal reasons, but just as a concept, marriage, doesn't apply to gay people. Unfortunately, it is, just calling it marriage doesn't actually make it marriage. It's always been a covenant between a man and a woman, and
As
they
a
believe
means of
that any other.
procreating children.
Hmm?
As a means of procreating children, because that's what marriage should be, and that's
Yeah,
my biggest
that is
beef.
what marriage.
And
No,
that's
yeah,
my
but like the
biggest. And
concept of
that's my biggest.
marriage is, union or a covenant between man and a woman to produce a
Yes.
family, or like you produce children.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
That's why gay marriage isn't technically marriage, right? Like this is like very semantical, where the word marriage doesn't apply, but maybe like a different term, maybe like, I don't know, like, just for an example, maybe say like contracting, or like, what is it? I don't know, like it's supposed to be, like the legal definition of a marriage is it's just a contract that allows two people to share things. Maybe like a bank account, stuff like that. But like the concept of concept of marriage doesn't apply to gay people, so that's why it doesn't really work.
In the conservative tradition sense, but
No,
what
but
I'm
that is
saying
what
is
marriage has been historically, and still even to this day,
historically,
even with the.
yes, historically it always has been like that. But that doesn't mean that's going to be basically in a free stateless society, or at least
Well, it hasn't
once the
all been gloom and doom. I mean, I know you might not like this satire, but in Japan, marriage rates have actually risen.
What? Yeah.
That's not right.
really in Japan, or oh no, they declined. They declined.
What? Wait, what's happening? Did they decline or did they rise on like the marriage rates?
Only among older people.
I'm sorry, what's going I just jumped in. What's going on?
We're talking about
Hey,
marriage.
filthy! Welcome to the
Hey,
stream.
filthy.
I'm only going to be able to be here for like 5, maybe 10 minutes. So
We're talking about marriage.
yeah.
Go. Marriage.
We're just talking about marriage and how it relates to libertarian contracts and why people.
Well, fundamentally, the idea of marriage, at least originally, was supposed to be a contract between you, your spouse, and God. As to why and how the state got involved, it was largely the existence of marriage licenses, at least in the United States, was done specifically to restrict the extent to which interracial marriages could occur, under the mistaken belief that somehow you need to validate, or that people would need to validate their love for each other by begging to the state to please let us have sex with each other, please. And of course, that tradition has since stuck. And yeah, now for some reason, marriage licenses are a thing. Now you can point to statistics about how people who are married typically have more successful relationships on average than people who aren't married. But again, that doesn't really mean anything. All you can really do is just point to the data. The data is fundamentally tautological. I think that's basically most of what I have to say on the topic.
Man, I don't even know how to comment.
Yeah, I mean he's not wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like the state, like if you guys do believe in the separation of church and state, then yeah. Like this.
I don't believe in the separation of church and state. I believe in the abolition of the state.
Right. Yeah.
The state isn't
like
even
the radical version of the separation.
Well, there's nothing. I mean, I push back on that just simply because there's nothing radical about what I believe. My beliefs are just simply an acknowledgement of the status quo that already exists. What's radical is statism.
Like the idea of like the concept of like separation of church and state. It's like you're gonna take it one step further, and you're just like, oh, I don't believe in the state. Which, yeah, that's what I meant.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't recognize the state's legitimacy. I don't know why anyone does, save for just out of pure ignorance or possibly maliciousness. But that's on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah, I mean, as a concept, marriage is sound. It just doesn't. It's not very popular anymore. Probably because
Well,
of
I
state
mean,
intervention. Not sure though.
I'm sure the state intervention part is exactly why marriage has gone down, especially the extent to which the clergy has been largely become just a mouthpiece for the government. I mean, historically, there actually has been something of a rivalry between the church and the state. That's not always been the case. For example, in the medieval period, the church was basically the state. The two were literally
So
one
which
and the
church? The
same.
Catholic one?
Yeah, the Catholic Church, although I don't think
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
known
yeah.
as the
Because the
Catholic Church
Catholic
at the
Church
time.
actually is like sort of its own government in a way. Like there's a lot of hierarchy in there.
It's not. It's also not just the Catholic Church either. Like historically, particularly in antiquity, the head of state was also the head of the state church. For example, the emperor was
Yeah.
literally the high priest, the emperor of Rome was literally the high priest of their pagan religion. The Middle
Mhm.
Kingdom of older China was considered to be a demigod. And I believe, I could be wrong here, the same is true with the emperor of Japan.
Yep. That's entirely true. Showa, which was Hirohito, was literally revered as a god, and he was said to have like carried on, like him being blood related to the imperial family of Japan at the time, which relates to, I don't know if I remember the name, Amaterasu or something, like the sun goddess, which was like a very ancient folklore in Japan. So, and they believe that the sun goddess gave like a bit of herself or something, and then created like the first, or like the descendant, which was like the first emperor of Japan, and then from that the tradition carried on.
I mean,
Yeah, so
I can,
they just
sorry.
believe that Showa emperor is like somehow a god or a demigod. So,
Mhm.
and they claim
I
like,
can-
oh, I can't look at him for too long because he hurts my eyes. It's like the sun. He's the sun. And it's like, sure he is.
Well, of
Sure
course, you
he
can't
is.
look at him for too long, or he'll hurt your eyes. Because if you don't, his guards will literally poke your eyes out.
Yeah, that's
So,
true.
so it's
That's
basically,
entirely
so
true.
it's in other words, it's just like people are forced through threat of violence in order to maintain this mythology that these lying psychopaths build up around themselves. And
I
because
think it's
people don't want to
actually
be
different for
because people don't
Japan.
want to
Is
be
that
coerced, because people don't want to be coerced, everybody goes along with it. And as I'm sure you're aware, a lie that persists for long enough eventually becomes truth. That's not literally true, of course, but you know what I mean.
yeah,
Now,
I think for
I can
Japan
also
it's especially damning.
I can also see why rulers in general want to attribute divine qualities to them, because there are various claims to ownership over their territories and people's resources, as well as their ability to bestow and take away people's rights, is literally only possible if they were gods. So, in other words, they have to claim they're gods because otherwise their entire house of cards becomes incoherent and collapses. I mean, just look at today, especially in the United States, and I'm pretty sure you can see various examples of this in South Korea, where all sorts of divine and godlike abilities are attributed to the head of state.
What do you mean divine? Like,
The ability to do things that you or I just simply cannot possibly do. The ability to do basically accomplish the impossible. For example, eliminate drugs, eliminate terrorism, the war on drugs and the war on terrorism
are you
being two
talking about
examples.
no, I just meant like, are you talking about the US or South Korea? Because I don't think.
I'm talking about the United States simply because I'm more familiar with it. Although I'm
Okay,
sure if I know you're more familiar with South Korea, so
I
you
am.
could probably think of examples that you're more familiar with. But
Yeah.
the war on the
Like
war on
how
terror and
like how
the
they
war
have
on terror and the war on drugs are two classic examples with the United States, as though the president of the United States and their various subordinates and underlings were capable of eradicating an idea.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, the war on drugs is futile. I don't know why anybody would do that. The very
I mean, I can tell you
impossible.
exactly why they're doing it. Because they want to be able to maintain a monopoly that funds their black ops operations. I mean,
Mhm.
the biggest drug traffickers in the world is literally the CIA.
Along with Big Pharma. which basically
Good point.
monopolize medicine.
I'm referring to illicit drugs specifically, though you are correct, Grambo. Like the drugs that are
like,
normally
what did you
considered
mention,
are
the
considered
war on
illegal.
drugs and then the Afghan war?
I'm sorry?
Did you mention the war on drugs and then something else?
I mentioned war on terrorism as well.
Yeah, like the Afghan war
in the
and
sense
like the
in
Iraq
the sense that they can somehow eradicate political violence, somehow in the belief that they can somehow eradicate terrorism defined as political violence, which, if they were to apply that consistently, means that they must necessarily destroy themselves, since politics in general always entails violence. So if you want to eliminate terrorism, you eliminate governments, all governments, for all time.
Yeah, I mean, warhawks and neocons make me sick.
Well, I mean, the neocons in general are just Trotskyists.
They're very bad.
And Trotskyism was very much predicated on the belief that Marxism can only be established through military means. So,
Well,
yeah, that's pretty much.
Trotskyism was the belief that there was like there would be like an international revolution where all of the workers of the world rise up simultaneously and overthrow their governments and then make their socialist or communist paradise.
Lies.
Which, yeah, you're
Lies.
right, would entail militant or revolutionary murder and
Anyways, as I
mass
said,
killing.
I actually got to jump off for now because, as I said, I can only be here for a little bit. But yeah,
All right,
See
man.
ya.
See ya. Yeah, but he's right. Marriage, it shouldn't really be. If anything, it should be under the authority of the originators of the what is it? The contemporary Western understanding of marriage, which was the Catholic Church, or just Christianity in general. So in the
Why?
West, at least.
That
Huh?
well, why in the West,
yeah,
and why?
even the marriages that
Well, I mean,
are-
I say West because Christianity isn't really popular anywhere besides, I mean, maybe in Europe, but
And
Europe
even-
is still counts as the West.
and getting back on topic, even more
Right.
saddening is even the marriages that are formed just don't last as long as they used to. In fact, infidelity has been at an all-time high in most of the Western world, like U.S. Well, only and cheating has only been surpassed by France. Well, of course the French are fucking perverts, but
So true. But yeah, I mean,
the good news is-
promiscuity, like prostitution, cheating, just general sexual deviancy has been very high on the rise. I wouldn't say it's necessary. Like, obviously, government can and probably do have a part with it. I think it's generally due to another issue, though. I think it's due to the cultural issues and the social issues of progressivism.
yeah, just this
Not just progressivism,
just-
but also the very moral constraints that they have been trying to. Not just the moral and the social constraints of what I'm trying to shake off, but rather it is the reactionary response to it.
The
And
reactionary response? What?
No. Hold on. Just let me.
Yeah.
The biggest fail when it comes to government, especially at the time, is enforcing traditionalism onto the masses from the more top-down level, whether it be the tradition of language, the tradition of marriage, of faith, and culture, all basically around, was done or tried to do it at the top-down level. We've seen this through examples like, I would say, the late 40s up to like the 1950s, as well as the 60s. The reactionary response of that is hail to the fuck no. Like, why is this all for which my life is basically is? So I'm saying, and I'm playing devil's advocate here on this subject, but I believe the sexual revolution was a response to that and saying hell to the fuck no to this until sadly it got subverted by communists.
Well, here's the thing: is that sexual liberation, as it was called, or sexual revolution, is actually a form of political control. E. Michael Jones made a book about this. It's like we do know now, thanks to his work, that sexual, revolution or liberation is a form of political control. And it was actually the progressives that said we're going to seize power in the government, and the way we're going to do it is we're going to make people think that we're going to be fighting for them to overthrow the traditionalist government or state, but in reality, they were just using it to push their own power.
And not just that, but again, this is where the subversion and infiltration happened, because they hated of being told from the top down on how people should live their lives, and at the time, they thought that they could do it through this, and I still believe that too. I don't want to be sexually, socially, and morally constrained. What is moral to the eyes of society, or at least in this case? So no wonder the progressives, or at least the very eugenics movement, completely much subverted. And, well, let's be honest, the very racial segregation was caused by the progressive movement of the eugenics side, so no surprise there.
Mm-hmm.
Along with everything else that came into being when it comes to the horrors of Nazi Germany.
Yeah, I don't get why. Okay, so here's a hot take from me is that I don't believe that Nazi Germany was far right, and I don't believe that they were even traditionalists or anything.
No. The term left and right is bullshit since the beginning.
I know but I'm using it in a broader understanding. I know it's from the French Revolution. I know it's a hawk of shit. I'm just saying. I don't believe that they were traditionalists, and I don't believe that they were even reactionaries, because they didn't want to revert back to anything. They actually wanted to create their own regime, which they did. They tried to kill the Kaiser, which I think they failed, but they tried assassinating the Kaiser, and they said before, like, we're going to create like a Volkish movement, which Volkism, if you read into it, is not at all traditionalist or reactionary. It's like their own thing. Like, it's their own concept that they created, and they're trying to convince people, not in a literal sense, but maybe metaphorically, that Hitler is a literal god, and that, there's there's like this whole new regime that they're going to build up, which is going to be and then they used reactionary appeals to, like, it's going to be like the Holy Roman Empire, but we're going to reestablish, or it's going to be like the old German Empire, but it was a lie. So I wouldn't even say that they're traditionalist or reactionaries. They're just weird.
Well, I do got to say that in many aspects, if you really much remember, most of the authoritarians, whether it be Adolf Hitler, Joseph Stalin, Mao Zedong,
they were totalitarians. They were like further than that.
Yeah, I know, but do you know how they got to it? It's because of how they were raised by their parents. Hitler's parents is the primary example of how tragic. And again, like, people say how Hitler was a monster. Remember, monsters are never born; they were made. And Filthy Heretic, who was basically with us, did a video, and he was right on this topic. Authoritarianism starts at home. So the horrific dictators that we've seen throughout history, whether it be communistic or fascist, they were the product of the horrible abuses of their parents, of which they were brought up.
Yeah, I mean, controlling parents definitely do produce bad children, that have. It's the same as like why bullying exists in like school, is because they probably don't have the best home life. Like, they're probably being told what to do, and probably having exactly what they do onto others, what done to them. It's definitely a very negative cycle. I mean,
it is a negative cycle. And the very negative cycle is what produces the very people that would committed these horrific atrocities to the Holodomor, to the very prison camps at the Gulag, to, I would have to say...
Wait, did you say the Holodomor? Oh, IMOK is not going to like that.
Yeah, I know, but again, I'm not a communist, or at least a communist sympathizer. While I do actually sympathize for what he wants, and not to mention most of the very history that wasn't told by the leaders, but I will say this. I will say this as someone who isn't a quote-unquote communist, or isn't liking to the idea when it comes to these collectivist movements of the so-called socialist, Marxist, Trotskyist, Stalinist, or, the Maoist, or just these movements in general. The Holodomor did happen. and the Gulag was awful.
Oh, I really wish I Am Okay was here right now. This would be a good one, but yeah, I agree with you. I think those happened. I don't like genocide denial. I mean, like,
No, and
you
I
don't
agree.
just see this
Hold on.
with
There's something which
totalitarian
I
regimes
agree.
that were
There's
communist. You
something
see
which
this.
I do agree with Ayamak in, that we're against genocide. I'm against
Yeah,
the
I mean,
genocide against any ethnic minority, be they white, be they black, be they Hispanic, be they Asian. The whole the whole concept, or at least the importance behind the movements against the tyranny of the state, was supposed to stop the violence of any group, of any minority, of any type of oppression. But like I said, at the end of the day, the very movements that are gaining ground that is a threat against the status quo, but also against the social order, at the end of the day, all became subverted because they believe that we must use the power of the state to reform it. And yet, look where the fuck that got us. Political reform
Okay,
did not
and
end.
just getting back on topic here, we're moving on to the next main subject, and it is
environmentalism, yes.
and how the government actually hurts the environment.
Whoo-hoo, I can't wait.
I just found this neat article from FEE on government versus environment, and I'm going to read it for people who can't read that small text because I don't know how to zoom it in. Hang on. Okay, government causes more harm to the environment than businesses or individual citizens. And that's for sure. And
Yep.
this isn't a new article either. This was written back in February 1st, 1998. This was before the whole climate pandemonium, or,
More like the climate panic.
panic was even a thing. So
The climate panic in the disco.
they were really ahead of the crew.
No, not that one.
Yeah, but you know, like, I am Korean, but I do live in Canada currently. I reside in Canada, and
Oh,
you know,
interesting.
this reminds me. I've seen gas prices, right? Like, gas prices in Canada have significantly gone up, and one of the main reasons for that is obviously because of the carbon tax that they currently have installed. And you know, like, I thought there was a political solution for this, because, you know, I was gonna look into this, and like, the political solution is this: you have to vote for a minority party called a PPC. Otherwise, there's no opposition to it. You know why? Because every establishment political party, including both the liberals, which are in charge right now, and the conservatives, both support a carbon tax, and so is the Green Party. The Green Party is the biggest advocate for this, and so do the NDP, which is New Democrats, and so, or the Social Democrats, they're called. But you know, like, throughout all this, I've noticed that the carbon tax is doing fuck all, because I've seen this, like, you know, this is gonna sound anecdotal, but this is actually accurate. I've seen this all across my community, especially. I've seen people that have, you know, that look at the gas prices, and like, maybe like, just you go to like a normal gas station. It says the prices used to be 150, now it's 170, or over sometimes, like maybe 180 in some parts. And people are like, this is ridiculous. It's like 20 over. I'm not going to pay for this. So they go to Costco. Costco has cheap gas prices because they're a gigacorp and they have a lot of money to throw. And so they have a lot of cheap gas prices, and they get more business that way. And so everybody's lined up. Every car is just running gas all the time, lined up there to get more gas. And then they like, my dad, for example, he fills up like a jerry can of gas, right? Because he needs gas to like work and stuff. So he needs to carry it without having to like pay massive amounts of money for it. So through all of this, you see people doing this as well. There were other people with jerry cans who filled up more gas and paid more, but like, overall they were paying less than they normally would, with like the 170, 180 gas prices. So overall, you know what this is doing, right? This is creating more of an issue. This is creating more of a bad environment. This is using up more gas. The carbon tax is doing jack shit because people find a way. And so the method in which they're doing it right now, right? Like, they said, I talked to some environmentalists, and they say, we're looking into nuclear energy. You know, Japan's looking into nuclear energy. And it's like, Japan, You know, they've been throwing toxic waste into the ocean. That's actually in studies says it's going to wash up
Wait,
on the
whoa, whoa,
shores
wait a minute,
of
wait a
North
minute.
America
They've been
sometimes.
throwing
just
toxic waste?
dumping toxic waste
Wait.
in the ocean, fucking
They're
ocean.
dumping toxic waste.
Yes. They're what is it? Currently, their fishing industry is shut down, I think. Or it was shut down because it was just so bad. The radiation or like the toxic shit in the ocean. They just couldn't eat anything from the ocean because it's too
Wait a
dangerous.
minute. Wait, what company is basically Japan
Wow,
that is
it's
doing this?
almost
I
as
don't
if-
know. It's their fishing industry. I can't give you like a specific company. You could look this up though. This is all true. But like my
So-
main point wasn't Japan because somebody, you know, environmentalists mentioned like Japan to me as like the beacon of hope for nuclear energy. Not going to work out in the next 2 decades, I
Fukushima
guarantee you.
happened. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so when people bring up examples of nuclear energy, that's not going to happen anytime soon because it's not being properly, like, there isn't any proper way of implementing this without fucking up the environment even more. And like my first point, which was the carbon tax, this is what like the US has been pushing for, you know, the Paris Climate Accord. Even the European countries in here, they're trying to find greener, quote unquote, solutions to stuff. Just can't do it. Like, it's just not possible right now. Like, the carbon tax is a flop. Nuclear energy is not going to come around for like decades, I guarantee you. So, and like the carbon tax is only causing people to buy more alternative gas, which costs, the cost is irrelevant. People are just buying more of it. So they're not, you know, their regulations are kind of failing here and like they're not working properly.
And yet again goes to prove why taxation is bullshit and why regulations and red tape stifles the very thing that could help people and individuals' daily lives. But yet again, nobody wants to listen. They say, but we need regulation. It's because of the evil corporation will becomes the government. Well, the big problem is who gives them power? Who gives beneficial incentives that makes them bigger and powerful to become like that? Hello, the very regulations and the very red tape, along with governmental support that you have put and placed them on. Are you nuts? How come it's always the very people that demand government solution to the various problems that only basically creates them, or basically it is the because of it?
Yeah, I mean, like,
Anyways.
overall, currently, I won't comment on like that, but I will comment on just like the environmental stuff. Nothing is working right now. People have yet to find a solution. Even making do with the government still being in charge. Like, for example, in Canada, you know, power is centralizing more and more by the day. The Liberal Party has more influence over people's daily lives than any other government would. Even the United States government, which, you know, that's saying a lot. But basically, Canada currently has no hope. People still cling to like the idea that like the carbon tax is somehow going to work. Like, I've had people tell me, it's like, if you don't think there needs to be a carbon tax in Canada, you're in the minority. It's like, yeah, I am, and I'm also correct, because just because you're in the majority of people who think that there needs to be a carbon tax does not mean you're correct. You're literally a sheep.
Yeah, literally the bandwagon fallacy.
Literally a sheep. Like, you're just saying like, well, yeah, everyone believes in it, so why don't you? It's like, because it's wrong. It doesn't work. I've seen it with my own eyes. I've seen my dad fill up a jerry can of gas and say, all right, let's go. And I asked him, like, why did you do that? And he goes, oh, well, because I need gas to work and I literally can't get gas anywhere else for a good price. And I'm like, so it's failing. It's not working. Like, I'm repeating myself, but I will keep saying this. Like, the carbon tax, not working, dude. It's not gonna. I think the carbon tax is like, the incentive is to like de-incentivize people from getting gas. And it's just like, what? Like, as opposed to what? People don't have cars anymore? What, they need to like bike to work? They should take like public transport, right? Like, public transport as a business is more of a tax in your wallet than it is actual taxes. You know why? Because if you take public transport instead of driving in Canada, there's like a card. It's called the Compass card in like the SkyTrain network or whatever. You need to pay like $1.90 for every zone you enter. And you got to keep doing
And
that. If you live in 3 zones, you pay $6 for a trip.
And let me guess, if this is the type of transit that is heavily publicly supported.
Yes. Yeah, and there's like a whole police force for it. It's called like transit police. Like, excuse me, what?
Transit?
There needs to be a secondary police force. I don't understand it. But
I
that's the
thought
thing. It's like they want.
hold on.
They're like.
I'm sorry for the interruption, Sad, but I
Don't
have
worry
to say
about it.
this.
Don't worry about
I thought cities were supposed to be more of a pedestrian-friendly type of place, not a place where it's supposed to be the second hellscape of a next dystopian model. Now, this is why
it.
I would say this on the concept of when it comes to what you just stated. This is why people hate cities, is because either the way how it looks, it's too dystopian, it's brutal, it's always where you see cars everywhere, it's everything so cramped up. There's only one thing that you can thank for that, and that is the zoning laws and everything else that is bad. That it's not pedestrian friendly enough for people to move around. Like, at least there's one thing Japan got one thing right, and it's that you have to make cities, or at least urban and metropolitan places, pedestrian friendly, for easier for them to move around, as well as for them to have access to easy, privatizedly controlled transit along where, or even
I don't-
alleyways aren't even
I
that
don't think you
shitty.
should bring up transit in Japan. I heard they have separate trains for women because they get groped a lot. They have an
Oh my
actual
God.
rape culture there. That's a big issue there.
Oof. Sorry,
I know,
never
right?
mind.
Here's the thing, actually, getting off topic a bit, but like, yeah, the environmental, like, I will still try to get back to the topic of environmentalism. Maybe
Yeah,
more
I'm
focused on
sorry,
Japan.
but
But don't worry about it. I will say though, yeah, Japan has like a weird, very weird cultural apparatus when it comes to their transit. Some they may have like more privatization, but since Japan is like an actual rape culture, I will say that is like a complete fact. You can look all this up. There's streams of it where like streamers who are girls get groped. It's insane. That like men have to ride in like a different train, like, and women have like their own train. They have to voluntarily segregate because they're literally just like it's a threat to them. Like it's a threat to their personal safety for women to ride in the same cart as men. Because first of all, pedestrian friendly is it's being generous, because most of those carts, when people go to work, they use transit, but some people drive, but a lot of people use transit in the subways. They're cramped up in there. Like they are very, very, very dense carts. Like people are like right up against each other, which is why sometimes involuntarily there are cases of like women, complaining that they've been groped. It's like, yeah, but there's no room, and I'm literally like, I can't like direct myself away from you. So I have no, like, I've heard Filthy Frank say this. It's like, sometimes you have no choice but to sniff a woman's hair because she's like literally right in front of you and you can't go backwards because people are blocking your way. And it's like it really gets that bad. So I wouldn't say that Japan's transit system is anything special.
yeah, I
anything
changed my mind. I'd rather go with either Amsterdam or basically Holland in general.
Yeah, but transit's a big issue. I don't think that like publicly supported transit is anything special. It's not good, obviously. Like, because there have been a lot of I don't know if this is just like a transit problem, but there's been a lot of like recent issues with transit in Canada, which is like there's been a lot of crime happening on trains, or like I remember one time me and my friends were at the mall and we were just about to head back home, but we literally just like we saw like that police were investigating, or the transit police were investigating something, and it was, like, we asked around a bit and people were like, yeah, somebody got hit by a train. It's like, what? A moving
I'm
one?
sorry, what?
Yeah. It's like, what happened? It's like, I don't know, he just jumped in front and the train completely smacked up against him, and it was like, so clearly we're seeing some sort of weird rise in like crime around these areas, and the transit police, which they're private security, to be fair. Like technically they are, but like they act as a police force in the sky trains. But it's very weird because like you look at like these weirdly occurring crimes and you're like, does this have anything to do with like the transit system in general? Because it attracts a lot of weird people, like even in Canada. So yeah, I don't like publicly supported transport or transit. I don't know, anything like that. It's weird. I don't like paying $6 every day for like to visit like a zone, which is very inconvenient.
Let me guess. Is it very much government owned and it's very much public?
I don't actually know. I'm assuming that it's publicly funded since the transit or the SkyTrain system has been so prevalent. Like if you go to like a very urbanized area, you will go to like maybe like somewhere close to like a city area. You will most definitely find a SkyTrain station every couple blocks or so. You know?
Hey, also, I wanted to tell you this. You know how, especially for example, the metro, like subway system, was very much heavily private up until like the 1950s in New York
Oh.
City, and
Mhm.
how very well it was operating. And yet there were none of this problem of which you stated. Imagine that. I did not learn of this until very much like some days ago, especially in one of Michael Malice's podcasts when he had a conversation about, like, Michael Malice is amazing. He's like the most based anarchist dude that I've ever met. And he talks about this, especially how I have no idea that back in the day, the metro system was heavily private. And none of this problem even occurred, not to mention even the mafiosos at the time even kept some shit in check, even though I'm not a big fan of the mafia. But the mafia existed is because of the prohibition era started by the moral busybody crazies that went on.
Mhm.
So we got two accountable problems. The mafia was birthed out of the prohibition of liquor and alcohol. And basically, the mafia got basically, along with everything else that went bad when it comes to, at least they did something right when it comes to keeping shit under control until power went through their fucking heads and shit got too far. But again, like, this was all but the product of the state. And I have no doubt, now, I could be saying this because of what you went through, and I'm sorry that you had to do it. All of this was done by the state, no doubt. And public transportation, even of the worst, of the most cramped, zoned, I would say, together type of environments, turns people either mentally ill or mentally insane. Now, I would love to share like some videos, especially on the various things about. Now, I may not agree with most of the stuff on which why, like, for example, this is why we need a government when it comes to making some reforms and fixing these problems. I disagree with that. If it anything, when it comes to environmentalism, these issues and these problems could heavily been resolved. All of this could have been resolved without any government interference. It could have been solved with a more regional, local, and basically more privately supported control for all of it, as well as to deal with the various issues that went on through it. Like, you really think the government's going to help resolve clean up the environment? I mean, look at the goddamn EPA, for example, of the amount of the toxic waste they spilled over at the very river where it's heavily undrinkable. Remember, the EPA is a government-controlled agency. When it comes to environmental issues, think about it.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like a lot of the institutions they prop up for sure just aren't very great. Like, they don't really seem to be that effective.
They aren't even helping. Remember, it's all about control. They aren't even helping, they're controlling. They control the various problems that needed to be resolved, but yet they don't. They just let the problems be unresolved while
Do you guys
still
know
pretending
who
that
the
they're doing
YouTuber
something.
Sam Cedar is?
What is it?
Do you guys know who the YouTuber Sam Cedar is?
Sam who?
Sam Cedar.
Sam
Oh,
Cedar.
no. I know that. That
I watched a
progressive
debate
card,
against him and a libertarian. They were debating
which
about
libertarian?
environmental control.
Wait, which libertarian in name? Or at least which
I don't
libertarian?
remember. It was like it was an environmental debate, and he brought up the Cuyahoga River and how he said there was no regulation. They were dumping so much waste into that. Corporations were dumping a lot of waste into that, and then after that, no. But listen, though, listen to the full argument for a
The
second.
goddamn EPA was in
Listen to the
control
whole,
of it.
no, you gotta listen to the whole argument though. The whole argument that Sam Cedar made was the Cuyahoga River was under so much, like, there's so much garbage and toxic waste in there, but the government came in and they regulated, and they told the corporations they can't dump there anymore. They started cleaning it out, and they said, "Oh yeah, and I walked by it today with my kids, and it looked great." And it's like, so that's your example of government regulation being successful? You can go ahead.
Oh wow,
That's his example. Yeah.
that is his fucking example. Okay, then ask him this: what type of
I don't have
incentive does that
contact with him.
corporation that is doing this billing has? What type of incentive does that corporation that did this billing has? Because I can pretty much be assure you that corporation or that company has very much a lot, and I will say a lot, of governmental incentive and support.
Yeah, I don't know who's doing the dumping. I think I don't know. Like he didn't even mention what the corporations were dumping were. I don't think. I don't remember. I need to find that video again. It was so funny because both Sam Cedar and the Libertarian were getting pretty, or I guess the Libertarian was getting pretty heated, and then Sam Cedar wasn't, and then it was somehow supposed to be Libertarian triggered. It's like that kind of seems like
It's called frustrations when you have basically false equivalencies and basically stupid narratives as a means of proving the one side that they're basically the right in here. Plus, what kind of libertarian is he? Is he more of the Libertarian Party types, the lowbirds?
Oh yeah,
the actual? Oh yeah, I knew it. That explains a lot.
Part of the party.
Yeah, the LP. No need to figure that out. The LP.
Yeah, most of the people who call into a show are partisan libertarians.
Anyone who is a libertarian and believes in the partyarchist system, walk out the damn door. You are no libertarian. You're only libertarian in name at the end of the goddamn day. If you want to learn more about libertarian ideas and philosophy, look more into like any type of look up Spooner, Lysander Spooner, for example, or how about I don't know, like Murray Rothbard, but the pre-Rothbard, not the later one. Yeah, when I meant by later Rothbard, it's basically his later works on wanting to unleash the cops, basically that something for which Hoppians would ooze in utter satisfaction against those
wait, that's a question I need to ask. Do you guys like Hoppians?
No, we absolutely despise Hoppians.
I, as an individual, learning about what Hans Hermann Hoppe idea is and what it amounts to and what it is the conclusion of it, and as well as the result, I hated Hans Hermann Hoppe's philosophy and ideas for many reasons, because those ideas basically, at the end of the day, could lead up to the end result of wanting a monarchy or just basically fascism. No, because let me tell you, I do have sympathies when it comes to why they became Hoppians. Because number one, whether it be the cultural degradation of their history, of their people, of language, and their faith and tradition, and all of it. But here's the biggest problem I have when it comes to Hans Hermann Hoppe's ideas. They think that the only way to preserve it is through some micro-state, which is basically a covenant community, as a means of preserving all of it. And those who threaten, basically anyone who threatens his libertarian social order, degenerates, homosexuals, anyone who isn't basically pure in the very... Anyone who isn't a trad in general. Now, this is just me. I could be wrong. I'm saying this as it is. I could be wrong. But I only say this as a form of as either an assumption or just what I've known when it comes to Hoppians. But
yeah, they want
those
physical
who don't
removal.
want this type of... But any of the people who don't want the type of woke insanity and type of degeneracy in their eyes to be infiltrated and to be basically amongst their community. So, of course, they wanted basically that. And if anyone who dares try to do that, especially through force and coercion, we will also do the same that to you. Especially by, as the meme suggested, throwing communists off of helicopters.
Yeah, physical removal.
Yeah, we must physically remove this degeneracy because this threatens the pure libertarian social order. Anything, be they people like myself, those who aren't basically of a type of spirituality or religion that we hold, etc., etc. This to me is what I'm afraid of. Is that this type of thing, I could be wrong, as I will state this again, would either basically lead to a hereditary monarchy or fascism at the end of the day. But I will say this. But I will say this, just to make sure to shut up. Culture, language, tradition, family, all of it does not require a top-down way of doing things. All of these things that has been gone throughout history, whether it be the cultural architecture of history, on all of it, not to mention through art and music and expression and creative expression, many forms of entertainment, has never, ever been from the top down. It's always been a bottom-up phenomenon.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just got confirmation that Iamak will not be joining us in the stream for personal reasons. So
Okay.
he's not going to be joining. Oh, I am okay. Yeah, or Iamak. He's not.
Man, I really want to speak. But anyways, just to finish up, as I stated, these are all phenomena that is based on a bottom up. Basically those who are the peasants, the middle class or the work, those who aren't part of the quote unquote super rich elite that are embedded with the state. During the 18th century, it was the aristocracy and the clergymen that were the elites at the time, that dared to have a set of a monopoly over what is culture, what is music, what is tradition, what is basically meaning. All of it, I can just go into a list of, they think they can have a monopoly, but at the end of the day, it's always been from the bottom, not from the top. And the top is basically the authority.
All right. So is that the environmental stuff done?
I still have to read this article real quick.
Oh, all right. Let's do it.
Oh yeah, sure. Go ahead.
All right. Okay. When the subject of the environment is brought up, the public perception is that of a resource of such importance that can only be adequately safeguarded by the benevolent, all-encompassing hands of the government. Whether that protection comes from the guise of Environmental Protection Agency, the Forest Service, the Park Service, the Bureau of Land Management, or any of the variations of the federal, state, and local levels. Many citizens fear that leaving the environmental, that is, property stewardship, in the hands of big business or selfish, quote-unquote, individuals would result in wholesale destruction of our land, water, and air. The zeal with which our legal system handles the large enemies of the environment grows ever stronger. Individuals are imprisoned for dumping dirt on their own land. Entrepreneurs, even with local and state permits in hand, are brought to trial for violating the decrees of the Army Corps of Engineers by creating new lakes and wildlife preserves. Private forest land is declared off limits to individuals seeking to retire to and build their own property. Selling their own trees will land them in jail. Wow.
The way to fix the environment, basically, listen. The way to fix the environment is to just stop. Just stop doing whatever you're doing. Are you using a computer? Are you recording? You gotta stop. No, I'm just kidding. But you gotta stop using modern technology. We gotta regress to an agrarian. We gotta go Ted Kaczynski. We gotta go Ann Prim. We gotta go
No.
towards like when civilization was
no. That is
you gotta get the club, you gotta get the rock, and you gotta get the animal's hide.
Oh, hey, Filthy's back.
No.
Hey, Filthy, what's up?
I'm back.
We're just getting to the environmentalism point.
Oh,
And I was just reading this juicy article from FEE about how people can get arrested for building their own lakes or selling their own trees. And that, to me, is like insane. And I'm not even done reading it yet. That's only the first paragraph.
Please continue. Filthy needs to hear this.
Yeah, okay, I'll continue reading. Yet, as in many other areas of our society, government reveals it contradicts itself by doing things that harm our environment far more than anything attributable to businesses or individual citizens. Amazingly, though, the ecological headaches engendered by these darker policies do not dim the luster of government activism. Indeed, as is typical of the harm engendered by the state's ignorance, ineptitude, and intolerance, the resultant problems lead to even more strident calls for further intervention. This seemingly endless cycle only increases the costs we pay for such bad programs, not only monetarily, but in diminished personal freedom and erosion of respect for our legal and governing system. Okay, then it goes into like, oh,
Goes into what?
and then it goes into most of the damage the state does to our environment comes when it seeks to help a particular segment of the population at the expense of the rest. With concentrated benefits and diffuse costs masquerading under the mask of the public good, these efforts have created many of the most egregious examples of abuse. Okay, point number one. Water usage has proven to be a favorite excuse offered for state intervention. Farmers benefit from subsidies designed to lower their costs for irrigating their crops. As a result, areas of marginal agricultural potential, especially in the West, are brought under production. Fragile lands are exploited that might otherwise lie fallow. Not only does the resultant overproduction of some commodities lower the prices farmers get for them, but the increased acreage put into crops leads to an acceleration of soil erosion. Subsidized crop insurance further exacerbates the situation.
Oh, bull. Oh, bull on all of that.
And point number two. Non-farm citizens also have their water costs subsidized by people in other parts of the country. Dam construction and artificial waterways designed to transport that water enable people to populate such arid regions as Arizona and Southern California. Not only does that lead to an explosion in population in those and other areas, natural lands are flooded for reservoirs, water tables are lowered to quench the thirst of newcomers, and water shortages occur during times of lowered rainfall. Rather than letting the supply and demand determine the proper usage of water, the government decides how this resource will be distributed. Those dams also provide hydroelectricity below cost, again encouraging settlement of these areas at a higher level than would otherwise occur.
Wow.
So yeah, urban sprawl is caused by the government.
No surprise.
Well, I mean, of course, everything the government does can be very easily understood once you understand, and I don't mean just know, but I mean understand that their motivation is entirely it's entirely power. Problem is that simply saying that it's power is too vague. By power, I mean leverage over individuals and their resources. So the question is, how does control over agriculture and its subsidy give them leverage over resources? Well, it puts farmers and farm production, agriculture in general, in situations where they become absolutely dependent on government subsidies in order to continue existing, such that they basically have to bow and scrape to whatever demands the government makes of them, or else be potentially put out of business. They don't even need to legislatively act against you. They can just simply withhold subsidies and you're screwed.
I know it's tragic. They're basically holding these farmers hostage with, these subsidies.
I actually got to push back on the use of the term tragic, because a tragedy is something unfortunate that happens that's entirely out of people's control. No, this is a deliberate attempt, or this is a deliberate act done by moral agents who are acting deliberately.
Moral Asians?
Yeah, moral agents.
Agents,
Oh,
not
okay.
Asians.
Sorry. I misheard.
So yeah, these are people acting in ways that they are incentivized to by their nature of holding government office.
Okay.
I mean, it's one of the many reasons why I really cannot justify anything. I really can't figure out a way to justify anything except anarchism, just simply because it doesn't matter how great and moral and wonderful you think your particular candidate is. They're all going to be faced with the same incentives, and so with you might get a few marginal changes here and there, just simply because not everyone is always going to interpret information in exactly the same way. And so they'll have different ways of responding to those incentives, but they're still facing the same incentives nonetheless when they have a government office, which is consolidate power, consolidate leverage over other people's resources, and be a fucking parasite.
Yeah, and I'm not even done reading the article. And even while prohibiting the cutting of trees in some forests, the government subsidizes the construction of access roads and other so-called public lands. This leads to an increase in the harvesting of lumber from areas many environmentalists would like to preserve. Wildlife habitat is also threatened. In a similar vein, state-owned rangelands are overgrazed by cattlemen enjoying lower than market rates to rent the land. Another example of the tragedy of the commons, the overuse of resource because of the denial of individual ownership. Overgrazing also strains local water supplies and contributes to environmental degradation.
Oof.
Oof.
Also, public. You said publicly owned land.
Yes, this all happens in publicly owned land.
Just a little bit of an advisor. Publicly owned equals government controlled. It's not public on the basis of by and for the people.
People don't
It's owned by
own it. It's just the government just owns and runs it. But it's a misnomer.
There's also another form of deception in the terms of public property versus private property. I mean, you already touched on the illegitimacy of referring to something as public property when it's actually government property. And I can go into probably an hour about why it is that government having any sort of property claims at all are going to fundamentally be illegitimate. But it also leads people who recognize that government property is illegitimate to be under the mistaken impression that actual public property, that is to say, commons, are somehow illegitimate conceptually, when all it really is just a whole lot of people who simultaneously have an equal or at least an equivalent claim to ownership over a certain property, such that no single person, that it cannot rationally be partitioned across individual owners. Roads being a classic example. Excuse me, I'll be right back.
Okay. And I'll just keep reading while you're off doing that. Okay. And, wait, there's more? Highway construction paid for by the government places roads to woodlands and other habitats regardless of the wishes of the individual property owners, who are confronted by the use of eminent domain, which basically gives the government a free license to just steal your land and just give you a measly sum of their choosing, and regardless of whether it makes economic sense. By also paying for infrastructure costs, the state encourages development in places where it might not otherwise occur. In Brazil, this is going to be rich.
Oh boy,
Brazil.
Subsidized road construction have contributed to the very rainforest destruction so many environmentalists decry, even as they call for more governmental controls. So there you have it. The Brazilian government is in on it. They're the very reason why the Amazon rainforest is being cut down as we speak, because they're building the roads for it.
Roads. Also, Filthy. Wait, is Filthy here? He had his mic muted.
He had
I wanted
to leave
to
for a
ask
second.
him. Yeah, well, I wanted to ask Filthy. Didn't you talk about this one private company when it comes to like chopping down trees, but yet actually replant them as like really replanting trees as a form of a resource that is in need? I think it's like mostly when it comes to like timber, when it comes to as a source of building.
Right.
Building as in like a building material, sorry. Because they have value on the very never mind. Again, an important building material. So they replant trees. Anyways, is that it, or is there more?
Oh, there's more. There's a lot more.
Oh, please continue. Please continue.
Through excessive regulation and prohibition of such technology as breeder reactors, the government has effectively killed new nuclear power plant construction in this country. Although nuclear power is safer and pollutes less than many traditional power sources, including coal and natural gas. What if by reducing the wealth of its citizens through taxation, inflation, and regulation, the government makes it more difficult to deal with the legitimate environmental problems we do face. Wealthier societies have the resources to handle such difficulties, while poor ones do not.
So basically,
if you tax someone, they aren't able to take care of their own property. Or tax someone too much.
taxation is theft!
You bet. Ultimately, it is the state's violation of property rights that leads to many of these environmental ills laid at the feet of private citizens and businesses. You're damn right they violate property rights.
I mean, hello! That's what libertarians have been saying since the fucking beginning.
Rights. Man, just
states in general ruin everything they touch. Let's be honest.
The state is like an onion. It has layers of just complete. Okay, I don't know where I was going with that. I just wanted to say that because I thought it'd be funny.
It's a Shrek reference, isn't it?
It's a Shrek reference. Yes, it is. It's like an onion. It has layers of what do you call it?
Bureaucracy.
Yeah, it has layers of bureaucracy and oppression. There you go.
I mean, that's basically what government is.
Yeah, the government is an onion. It's a very easy way to put it.
Filthy, you there?
Yes.
I want to
the government's an onion, Filthy Heretic?
What?
The government's an onion.
I would say it's a tumor.
Yeah.
No, but just it's an onion. Like it has layers of bureaucracy and bullshit and oppression.
No, it's just a tumor.
Okay.
Here's the thing about an onion.
Kind of making fun of people.
An onion can be consumed, and an onion offers some nutritional value. So there is something to be gained from it.
Boomers can too, technically, but you wouldn't want.
Boomers are worthless. They are also tumors, which is why they fit very well into the bureaucracy.
Boomers!
Boomer!
But the governments are just straight up a cancer. They are an affliction to be excised from the body.
Anyways, Filthy, I wanted to ask you, did you say that there was a company that is not only cuts trees but also regrows them as a value building material?
That's logging companies, and that's how their business operates. They own just ungodly numbers of acres in various woodlands and then cut them down and then replant them so that in 10, 20 years they can cut them down again, because that's how they sustain their business model. If they just cut down all the trees, then there's going to be an extremely long period where they're not going to be able to get more wood to their suppliers, which means that they won't be able to fulfill any contract, any ongoing contracts they'll probably have, and so they're screwed in the long run.
Right.
The only reason that they would cut it down at all is because they don't own the land, and therefore they would be trying to extract resources from others as much as possible. This is only possible through, as I think mentioned earlier, government ownership of property being leased out to multiple organizations who don't actually own the property. This is, of course, prevented through private ownership as well as common ownership, because with common ownership, if someone's being a dick about the commons, everyone else is free to disassociate with them.
Voluntary disassociation.
Yeah. So really the tragedy of the commons is really only valid as an observation about what happens with government-owned property. Problem is that people try to attribute tragedy of the commons to property ownership in general, which unfortunately is an incoherent use of it.
Anyways, Watchmen, continue.
What do you have to say to the people who say these forest fires are caused by poor land management on behalf of the government?
Are you ever going to get anything except poor land management on the part of the government?
Well, it's almost a guarantee, of course. Why do you think
You're
most of these
never-
forest fires happen on public forest service land? It's just.
I mean, there's also
Once
another
it's-
explanation. There's also another explanation, which is that California as a cursed land is currently in the process of being punished by God. The California firefighters are actually working against God's will.
Oh my god. That is edgy.
Yeah, I'm not a believer in the divine, but if the never-ending forest fires is basically divine justice, I'm pretty much frightened right now.
Yeah, California could sink into the ocean for all I care in a few months.
California needs a goddamn
we
cleanup,
just-
and Gavin Newsom and the rest of the government over there is making people little hell over there.
All right, so let me just check is CaliforniaOnFire.com updated today, Saturday, July 10th. I believe this is like in the 24-hour clock rather than the 12-hour clock, so I'm just trying to do a translation off the top of my head. So this would be from 9:26 today, 2021 Pacific time, and the answer is yes.
Wait, the forest fire hasn't stopped.
I'm going to post a link in general. You can go ahead and click on it.
General chat. Don't post it in too late.
I posted it in general.
All right, let me check
It's
it out.
CaliforniaOnFire.com. That is the funniest. That is the funniest website link I've ever seen. Yes, it just says yes.
Well, I mean, it's always on fire, so
Oh wow, that's
Yes.
I'm going to be honest. You could probably drop a nuclear bomb on Los Angeles, and I don't think anyone would really notice the difference.
Oh please,
It's like this one scene from, I believe, Scary Movie.
No, that one scene from Terminator 2, Judgment Day, I think.
No.
Don't remind me of that scene.
I meant Scary Movie 4, where they show a before and after shot of Detroit before the alien invasion. You hear screams, gunfire, and buildings on fire. And then it shows after the aliens arrive. You see screams, the exact same clip of screams, gunfire, and buildings on fire, except that now there's alien tripods.
SpongeBob, Patrick.
Tripods.
We did it,
Yeah.
Patrick! We saved the city!
We saved the city.
We saved the city.
Yeah, but no, a Night Watchman. Even until today, even that is pretty much less dated. The nuclear explosion scene from the Terminator 2, it scares the fuck out of me even today. The way how it looked frightens me. How come even in today's world they can never pull that off? But yet,
that
even
movie
in
came out in 1981 from all things, and the effects still blow me away.
yes, it still does. I mean, what happened to Hollywood? Have they lost their creative magic, or it's basically dead now?
Hollywood is controlled by. I'm not gonna finish that
Communists.
sentence. I'm not gonna finish that sentence. Never mind. Hey, I posted something in general. You should check it out. It's pretty important.
Okay.
Oh no, Big Chungus.
Big Chung sus. Show it on the screen, Night
Oh
Watchman.
my god, they've done it. They truly done it.
Show it on the screen. It's Big Chung sus. Or a Chungus, rather.
Amogus. Yeah.
Amogus.
Amogus.
See, it's funny because Amogus.
And also, this is very much off topic when it comes to like movies in general. Well, off topic when it comes to environmentalism. I just want to make this quick.
Yeah,
I've
this
seen
whole
the Black
discussion
Widow
is kind of
movie.
off topic.
Yeah, but I've seen the Black Widow movie, and let me be honest, it was the most. It was that bad. Like everything is all toned down and completely much child friendly at its course. I wish Disney never took control of the Marvels. I wish they never taken control of Marvel Comics, or at least the Marvel Universe in general, because how much of the ratings, even for most of the Marvel shows, are going down the drain. That even not even my siblings complete much noticed. Like if this was done, I mean, if the Marvel Universe was never done by Disney, it would have been hell of a lot more different. Like we could have gotten a Black Widow that is so different, and like basically, if only like Black Widow film was basically rated R and not this PG-13 overpowered whammon strong everyday type, but instead we can actually get a more gritty, the more uncomfortable, frightening, vulnerable Natasha Radnoff, that the way that makes her more interesting, along with very well choreographed fight scenes, like basically what you see from like East Asian action films.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like, as a person who's I'm very into film and like all
that. Like, what is the movie? What is the Korean movie industry like? What movies do they?
It's pretty cool. I mean, like Parasite was pretty good.
Oh yeah,
that was very nice.
Yeah.
You know what's funny about that too is that was a critique.
Really frightened me, to be honest.
Parasite. That was supposed to be like a critique on class issues in Korea. We don't have that. Like, it's not very common. I don't know what they're getting at. Maybe they're talking about like a family from Busan comes to like Seoul or something. It's like maybe, but like, yeah, I think they're conflating an issue. People were like using that. People on the left were like, look, it's class issues in Korea. No, I don't like people conflating that. They don't know what they're talking about. Yeah, but that movie's good. I like the story. I like the choreography. The cinematography was very, very good. The story was like normally people like, I'm getting into film, and like, my film teacher was like, hey, yo, so the story doesn't actually matter that much. It's the shots and scenes, and it's like the story doesn't matter. That's like the first time I've ever heard a film teacher say that. Of course it matters. And Parasite hit the nail on every single one of them. They hit the nail on the shots, scenes, the cinematography, choreography, and then eventually, like the story was really good. Very good dialogue as well.
Personally, one of my favorite action films from Korea at the time that I wish that it could have gotten like an English dub release is basically Shiri and the Villainess.
Oh, I haven't heard of that one.
What, Shiri?
Nope.
Well, it came out in 1999, but it is really good based upon the choreograph and live action. It's basically a North Korean double agent. Originally, she's from North Korea, and she's been trained to kill in the art of every tactical assassination. And she infiltrates South Korea as a means of trying to destroy. And it's just, I mean, it's tragic, but yet something about her is interesting because of that tragedy. You get to see.
That reminds me. There's another movie called Steel Rain, and that one's a good.
I've seen it,
right? It's very good.
Yes.
I like it. Yeah.
They
made a second version. I haven't watched that yet.
The ending broke me.
Yeah, the ending's sad. See, that's the thing too, is like about Korean films and like most media in Korea. They're really good at making it sad. Like, if you don't cry while watching a film that's supposed to make you sad, that's Korean, I don't know. You might not have a soul. I'm just gonna say.
And here's the funny when it comes to Japanese media. When people say that, but there is no diversity and inclusion in the Japanese world of entertainment, I'm like, bitch, they've been doing that a hell of a lot better compared to the Western side. And I always kept saying this, how come they did it so much better than they do here, especially either in Hollywood or anywhere else in Western entertainment? And some individual, which basically she said this best, it's because they're not afraid of showing the good and bad qualities of humans.
Yeah, the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah, good, bad, ugly, horrible, and the most broken sense of qualities for which we as individuals have, and that's what's missing.
How do you
Along
think? How do you
with
think a
unlimited
100%
offset,
anarchist movie would do?
and not just that, but also the breaking of the narratives and boundaries and stereotypes about known individuals, for which we often mock, but we laugh at it.
What? Who? What? I don't know what you're talking about. Like, what do you mean? Like stereotypes of?
Stereotypes, narratives, and boundaries of certain demographics and groups, as well as individuals from it, whether it be racial,
You're saying
gender.
like anime, like, or sorry, Japanese content. I don't know. I know you're not talking about anime specifically. You're saying like Japanese content.
Yeah, Korean.
Yes.
Yeah, Korean animation is also pretty neat too. I mean, look at this.
No.
It's
Yeah,
like vast
and
different-
I
and
don't
that's pretty
want
much
them
the
to
same for
continue.
Korean anime.
No, total. Okay, this is a bad joke, but I was gonna say total dictatorship. No more anime.
Oh my god,
This
no!
isn't anime though. This is like a.
It is anime. They're trying to make it anime, and I don't like it.
Okay.
What they're trying to make an anime?
Bast of
They're
Lemon.
they're
It's,
trying. They're making Korean. They're making animations in Korea now that are very reminiscent to anime, and I don't like that.
Okay.
Well, I'm sorry to say, but I think there's some manhwa comics that I'm already liking. Sadly, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I must have all of them deleted off the internet.
Well, the Korean government is already doing that when it comes to hentai and everything else that they wanted banned. All I can say, it's no wonder Korea's a depressing place. I'm
No,
sorry.
it's not a depressing place. No,
want
screw
shit
you. It's
banned,
not
no,
a
no,
depressing
if you want
place.
shit banned, don't be expecting if there are other types of people who will find that shit in the black and gray market as they downloaded that from torrent sites or basically from their VPNs.
I think they already do that because there are some obscure animations out there.
Oh yeah, wait. That reminds me. What do you guys think about YouTube's current state?
Oh,
YouTube's dead.
Fucking
Yeah,
terrible.
it's basically dead. I mean, just look at the stream. I could barely get any traffic on it, no matter how many jokes or how.
This is content right here, man. They're missing out.
This is real content. We're
This is
I mean,
real
here's the thing. It's like YouTube. Ever since YouTube got bought by Google, it's basically just been a way for corporations to attempt to shill their content in a way to make people mistakenly believe that things that become popular here is in any way not a planned thing, like a fake, like an astroturf way of getting things popular. A good example of this is actually. Does anyone here remember Justin Bieber?
Yeah, I know. I don't know who that is.
No, I refuse to remember, especially the teenage days of when his song "Baby" was still around.
Bieber.
What his backstory is that he was a guy who, like, just some kid who was making music on YouTube. He got very popular and then got a record deal. However, this is complete and total nonsense because his channel from the very beginning was selected for by YouTube under corporate sponsorship to be basically YouTube shilled for him because he had already received the record deal. Yeah.
What? That is bullshit. So, in other words, he did not got famous through talent and through fame by his own gifted works, along with the very amounts of support by the very people who liked his content along with his music, but rather through corporate YouTube shilling that made him automatically famous for no reason. Oh, I hate this world.
Justin Bieber shouldn't be popular. That's what you're saying, right? Like technically
No.
he shouldn't be. No, like, but that's the thing is like if YouTube never promoted him, he wouldn't be all that popular. Maybe locally on YouTube, like maybe he'd have like a couple million subscribers and he'd still be making content today, making just amateur music, but he wouldn't be like global stage type famous. Like if YouTube never allowed him to, right?
Mainstream sellout type of person is what I'm
He still would have had his music played on the radio. He still would have sold albums. All that would have remained the same. The difference is like he would have just been one of those people who comes out of nowhere. Then people get used to the name existing, even though they didn't exist a couple minutes ago. It's like Facebook. One day, like everyone's talking about MySpace. Hey, do you have a MySpace account? What's your MySpace? Hey, did you see this cool thing on MySpace? And then overnight, it's just like
MySpace?
Facebook.
Nah, our space.
No,
Man,
the next
Our
day,
space.
everyone's like,
Bread
the
space.
next day, everyone's never mind.
YouTube?
No.
Nah,
Yeah.
RedTube.
Oh,
YouTube?
No, first it
Nah,
was MySpace.
BreadTube.
No. Hold on. First, it was MySpace. I was still basically a young little schooler at the time when MySpace was around. Then
Yeah, that
came
was before my
YouTube.
time.
Yeah. Then came Facebook. I used to have a Facebook. Thank God I got deleted. I deleted it off. And then came YouTube, which YouTube was still a baby face and a wild west of edgy, provocative out there, whether it be the Tourette's, whether it be Tourette's girl or two lesbians kissing. That was the edgy stuff at the time that really gotten into the very censorship stuff that wanted to have that removed. But hey, that was the beauty of the internet at the time. Then it grew into popularity, and before you know it, because of this sense popularity, Google just looked at it and say, "Hey, we can make money and exploit this, so let's buy YouTube." And that's how
Google.
it started into the slippery slope of corporate shilling, which we have now.
You know, YouTube now is like an onion. No. YouTube right now like is a very big issue. I've been talking about this for a long time and bring this up to people, and I think YouTube needs to have everybody in charge of it forcefully thrown out of it because they're clearly not managing it properly. YouTube needs to go back to when it was like 2000, like I would say 16, even 16 was like the renaissance of the internet. It was like the meme renaissance, right? They had like a bunch.
No, it wasn't.
What?
It wasn't.
What do you mean?
No, and you're ignoring the big problem. There's a reason that YouTube became the way it was, and you're going to have to take a couple steps back if you want to know what the real problem is.
What is the real problem?
Operation Choke Point.
No. What? Operation
Wait, so-
Choke Point is not relevant to this conversation at all. I don't even know why you'd bring it up.
Well, remember, it was Google that bought up YouTube, and the amounts when it comes to the whole problems of big tech censorship, which basically led for, well, you know, government intervention into Silicon Valley. When, let's be honest, it's already a branch of the state, anyways.
Okay.
But I'm sorry. Please explain why.
The problem stems from the very beginning and is fundamentally much bigger than any one firm in Silicon Valley. It ultimately is just an incentive of the industrial model of a political economy, which is just heavy amounts of centralization, where the most production is consolidated into a very small number of very large firms. As long as you have Google, Facebook, Microsoft, any other big tech firm you can think of, just big firm in general, Sears, GM, Toyota. Think of any large company or large corporation you can think of. They're all controlled and subsidized and beholden to the state. I mean, the corporation itself is just the latest iteration of the joint stock model of economic organization, which is primarily just a form of organization where a bunch of people can do business in such a way that they can privatize gains and socialize losses. Socialize losses in the sense that they pass on their costs, they externalize their costs over to the state. And as such, like the real problem that exists in YouTube is not that it's poorly managed. The bad management is just a symptom of a much larger problem, which is the consolidation of production into the hands of a very small number of companies that are directly controlled by the state to such an extent that Google, Facebook, Amazon, all of these big tech firms, and even most firms in general, are just basically government agencies in all but name.
Pretty much.
So this is why it drives me wild whenever I hear the bad management argument. And it's the same thing you'll hear with statists all the time. People will just say, oh, the problem with government is just that Joe Biden's in charge, even though these exact same problems occurred when George Bush and Donald Trump were in charge. It's all just bad management. We just need good managers. No,
Yeah,
the problem
Biden
is
is
the
pretty
fact
status quo. I don't know why people point to him as like a very like a
Biden is
exception.
senile and an idiot. The way how he's
the
handling
problem. The problem is the fact that there are managers in the first place. Not managers in general, but I mean managers in the sense that the problem of bad management that people are pointing to is in fact a symptom of the problem, not the problem. It's like you're trying to cure cancer by giving people a shot of adrenaline so they're less fatigued.
But hey, Broken Clock is right twice a day. I mean, he's pulling us out of Afghanistan after 20 fucking years, so...
We're really not. Are we really out of Afghanistan though? I mean, the
Not
government's
really.
going to maintain a standing force of 15 to 20,000 mercenaries in Afghanistan, even after the last U.S. troop is pulled out. So, is there really going to be any difference? The only thing that's really going to change is that the people aren't going to be directly government employees. So, whenever war crimes are committed, the United States now has plausible deniability.
The Biden administration and its consequences have been a disaster for the human race.
I mean, the existence of this state has been a disaster for the human race.
Along with the halting of everything that could have moved us forward into a bright and optimistic future, let alone flying cars.
Well, we're going this
They
way.
have flying cars now.
Yeah, we're starting to have flying cars now. I mean, there is plans in the works.
We finally did it after a very delayed amount of time. We finally have flying cars.
We've had flying cars since 1912. It's nothing new.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Oh, Filthy, tell him. Filthy, tell him.
The first airplane was so light you could carry it by hand.
Oh. I just
And
meant like I meant like the types of flying cars that you would imagine like in cartoons, which is like
hovercrafts.
Yeah.
I mean, those
not
could-
hovercrafts,
those could-
like you know, cars that can just fly, like with like kind of futuristic wings and stuff, which they have now.
so hovercraft.
It's not a hovercraft; it actually just flies. It doesn't hover.
You're going to want to speak to the Wright brothers about that. Keep in mind the first airplane was made by a bunch of bicycle salesmen in their garage. So I mean, this kind of tech isn't exactly difficult to make.
You mean no tech is very much easy to make?
I'm saying that it's actually not terribly complex. You just need to make a fast thing you just need to make a thing that can move forward and give it wings. And then to be able to control those wings.
Right. But on the topic of environmentalism, do you think that this is all have to do with just energy in general?
I gotta cut this short. I gotta go, but it was nice talking to you guys. See you.
It was amazing talking to you, Scott.
Have a good night.
So what about environmentalism? I mean, environmentalism is just another propaganda piece that the state uses to justify increased control over people's resources. I mean, you can tell this just by the fact that when it comes to a lot of the criticism levied under the pretense of environmentalism, that no criticism is ever levied against the military-industrial complex, or even just a fiat system of currency entirely. No one ever talks about No one ever talks about how those incentivize overproduction and various other environmental degradations.
I mean, no.
It's entirely disingenuous.
I mean, no disagreements there.
Yeah, there's no real disagreement there. It's just
But
I didn't say but.
I know, I'm just waiting for it.
Well, you can't say all.
I mean,
you can't say all these environmentalist
government-
groups are statists. I mean, there are a few that are anarchists.
I didn't say all of them are statist. I just said that environment. I'm just saying that environmentalism is used as propaganda by the state for the reasons I already described. Excuse me for a minute. I'll be right back.
Right.
And I think it's about time I call this stream to a close. So when Filthy gets back,
But
we'll
but
all
but
do our close.
should we say something as a means of sending off,
Yeah,
or at least ending?
we'll have our little send off. We gotta wait for Filthy to get back, though.
Yeah. Well, can I say something?
Oh, sure. Start with your send off.
Well, my send off is this: is that all of the disastrous environmental results, whether it be geological in many ways, have always been the result of government intervention. Because at the end of the day, the government just wants to take control resources, whether it be oil, coal, any form of energy that forces the masses and the population more codependency towards their basically their overarching tyranny over our lives. If only that they if only if they haven't, there could have been amazing amounts of innovation and competition of different forms of energy. I mean, there was, or at least an invention of as a means of combating oil and gas when it comes to like I don't know what was the name of that invention, Filthy?
Which one?
Something about using water or some form of corn oil as a form of gasoline. But yet, at the end of the day, some government glowers came in and basically suicided him.
I'm not sure.
I'm not quite sure either what you're talking about, Rambo. But I would like to say for my closing is that when it comes to marriage, I do respect the institution, and I do personally hope to get married one day. But I just don't see it as being
Get government out of marriage first, Watson,
as I was going to say.
so people can decide.
We need to get government out
Yeah,
of
so
marriage.
people can decide.
So people can decide how they want to have their relationship, and they don't want the government telling them how and when they can, tie the knot, so to speak. And for
And not just that, Night Watchman. I also wanted to say, if people wish to go to an institution of faith as a means of ceremonialism of wanting to get married under it, then that's basically their choice. But what I wanted to say is that it does not require that as a means of establishing or affirming the relationship together to spend the rest of their life.
Okay, and for Filthy, what are your final words? I'm going to be closing the stream down.
Sorry about that. Connection issues. Basically, state bad.
State bad. Hey, that's my line, Filth. You know how I tend to be.
Yeah, but I'm hijacking it because IP is an illegitimate concept.
Okay, I don't mind.
Okay, you wouldn't mind if I said, "Oh hi, I'm the Night Watchman."
Oh hi, I'm Rambo.
I would mind.
Gee.
Oh, Filthy. Anyways, thank you for watching, 3 people, and stay tuned for next week. Peace out.
Thanks for watch, and good night.